Welcome to Unfiltered. This is Carl Reed with my man Smoke Dixon. Smoke, we're going to talk about some of the best recruiters in the country today. You've been in the game a long time as a player and a coach. What to you makes a great recruiter?
Well, Carl, when you talk about recruiting, you got to be able to communicate, build relationships, be able to be tossed off in any part of the world if you were in the South, North, East, or West and come home with a product that you went out to go get.
When I was coaching high school, Smoke, I wanted guys that were excellent evaluators, and excellent communicators. It allowed you to get straight to the business of if the player was good enough to play at the school or not. I'm going to start off with my top three guys right now, Smoke. I'm going to go with wide receiver coach from Ohio State, Brian Hartline. I'm going to follow that up. Tight end coach, University of Kentucky. We had him on the show last week, Vince Morrow. And finally, special teams coordinator from the University of Iowa, LeVar Woods. What about you, Smoke?
Man, Carl, that is a strong list, man. You went from top to bottom, east to west, north and south. But I'm going to go ahead and knock it off with my list. I'm going to start off with Kevin Beard down at the University of Miami. Then I'm going to go ahead and come on up to Alabama and touch on my man Freddie Roach. Then I'm going to take it a little bit west of the Mississippi and top with my man Todd Bates, defensive line coach at Oklahoma.
Those are some of the best guys and the best guy in the game. A lot of legends on that list. You got to pick one guy to highlight, Smoke, out of those three guys. Who is it and why?
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and highlight my guy Freddie Roach. And this is why I'm going to touch on Freddie Roach. I'm going to hit on Freddie Roach because he's been at Alabama and they had a change. And one of my thing is when you recruit, everyone looks at recruiting as a saying, how am I going to retain my high school players when I'm recruiting them from high school? But Carl, you know the recruiting game has changed. You also got to retain the players on your team. And when they had that massive shift with Nick going ahead leaving and the earth shut down for a complete day, Roach was retained as a coach and he retained all of his recruits. And when you're on the recruiting trail and you talk and you hear about Freddie Roach, one thing that you hear about Freddie Roach is he builds relationships. He's able to go in Canada and go get one. He's able to stay in his home state and capture that. But also, when you look at it, his room, the guys that he coached, the guys that he's been with, all love him. They don't leave. They stay there because they know they're going to get developed, then they're going to get a strong coaching, and they're going to get somebody that really cares about him. So when everyone looks at recruiting, they always look and say, hey, who's going to get these 5 stars? Get whatever you can get, but retaining them, Carl, is the key and an advantage. Who you got for yours?
I have to go with Brian Hartline, wide receiver coach at Ohio State. If there's one thing that's true in this business, every wide receiver in the country is hoping that Brian Hartline walks through their high school and offers them a scholarship to Ohio State. When you talk about the guys that they've had at Zone 6, Hartline has identified, he's evaluated, he's developed, and he's been right there with some of the top guys that ended up being first round draft picks. The most recent is Marvin Harrison, but the list goes on and on of quality guys at Ohio State in that receiver room. And Brian Hartline has been a legend. High school coaches love him, the trainers love him, and he has been excellent at continuing the tradition of elite wide receiver play at Ohio State, Smoke.
Man, Carl, you said a mouthful with yours. But here's what I'm going to ask you about Brian Hartline. I've seen him on a recruiting trail. Do you have any personal stories with him?
Brian Hartline came to St. Louis several times because we had a great group of receivers in St. Louis. He hung out with the high school coaches. He let you know what he was looking for, not only from a talent perspective and having elite speed, but also from a character standpoint. How important was character and the kind of guys they were bringing into Ohio State locker room? He spelled it out and left you with no doubt the kind of person, the kind of player, and the kind of human you had to be at Ohio State. He did a great job building relationships with the high school coaches in the area, and people felt like that about him across the country. When I would call my guys in Ohio, when I would call my guys throughout the country and say, is Brian Hartline a guy that I could trust? Everybody said the same thing. No doubt about it. Hartline is the real deal.
Well, you know, what you're saying about Hartline, you pretty much say about Freddie Roses himself. You know, you go back and look at Alabama's defensive line and even the edge players, they look the same. Thick, heavy-handed, long, athletic guys that got the job done. And like you just said, a good recruiter is always going to have to know What kind of product are you going to bring into the room? What type of character guys you going to bring into the room? If it's the same and you've been working with the same guy, you know exactly what you need. Carl, man, listen, top recruiters in the game. I'm loving this, man.
Smoke. The thing about Freddie Roach as well, when Freddie Roach was at Alabama, when he's still there, Nick would a lot of times put him on the guys that they needed to have the most. It didn't matter if you were a defensive lineman, a quarterback, a receiver, a DB. If Freddie Roach was recruiting you, that signified how important you were to Coach Saban that you ended up at the University of Alabama if he was the guy that was chasing you.
Carl, I got it. He did recruit Caden Proctor 100%, and then he got him back again. So, like you just saying, legend in the street, master communicator, and ability to relate.